Hello, and welcome to In the Garden with Flower Hill Farm, a podcast brought to you by Botanical Interests. I'm your host, Nicole Pitt. Today's episode is pretty special. In case you haven't noticed, there's no flower wall behind me. I'm not in the podcast studio, and that is because we are recording this session live at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival in front of a live studio audience. Go ahead and say hello. So I've been here a few days. This is my first time at the festival. This is absolutely amazing. Any other first timers here? Okay, so I'm not alone. It has been truly incredible. The knowledge inside this building, the energy, it's like it has a heartbeat. It's palpable. And I'm so glad to share this energy with you guys today. Okay, a little background on myself. If you are just walking in, you don't know who I am. I was a television news anchor for over a decade in my hometown. I reported the news, I produced the news, I anchored the news. We just told stories in my community. But I started growing flowers for profit about 8 years ago, and we haven't stopped since. This will be my 4th season too, owning my local garden center, and that has been quite the adventure, to say the least. I'm learning every single day. I am from New York State, upstate New York, wide open country, about 4 hours north of the city, and my husband and I are raising 2 beautiful teenagers on a 20-acre postcard. I call it a postcard because the property, I grew up on it. I bought it back 22 years after my parents sold it. And it has beautiful rolling hills, tree lines. Literally the porch is set up to watch the sunrise, and it is my postcard. And as soon as we moved back to that property, I knew it was meant for something bigger than me. And I decided I need to fill it with flowers. And that's what I've been doing since about 3 months before I moved in, because the previous owner was lucky. I was lucky enough that he allowed me to start tending the garden there before I moved in. So that's a bit what my background is. But I'm so inspired by this festival, and it is the perfect way to kick off the 2026 gardening season. Now, like I mentioned, we have a live audience watching as we chat. You guys already said hello. Now, after we finish recording this podcast, I would love for you guys to join me out in the lobby, and we can maybe record some garden inspiration stories that we can add to our Sow and Tell segment of this podcast. I love hearing what's inspiring you in the garden, either from this show or from your garden goodness at home. Okay, I have ignored the 2 powerhouses next to me for long enough. So first, I would like to introduce a friend that I've had on the internet for about 7 years now. Now, I'm actually getting to meet her for the first time this weekend, and it has been amazing. Jennifer Gulizia, Flowering Farmhouse, and she is an amazing flower farmer. She hosts a podcast called The Backyard Bouquet. I have been a guest. Deb's been a guest. She's doing an amazing job, really just so passionate about education and sharing your love of flowers. Jen, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. And next we have someone who I've been listening to since the very beginning of my flower journey. Little does she know, but she's been a cheerleader sitting on my shoulder, whispering flower goodness into my ear since 2018 when I found her podcast. And this is none other than Debra Prinzing.
Hi.
Hi, Deb. Deb is the founder of the Slow Flowers movement, hosting a podcast of the same name since 2013, known to be ahead of the trend. She's an author, a speaker, and an incredible advocate for this industry, farmers and gardeners alike. So Deb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, great to be here.
Okay, so in today's episode, we are going to talk about the continuing rise and demand of local flowers, because it's there, we've got it, we're the momentum, we're moving. And perhaps some trends that we're seeing in this upcoming season. Deb, I want to start with you. So last night I was chatting with a great group, including Jen, and it was brought up that the United Nations has declared 2026 the year of the female farmer.
That's great.
Now, how empowering is that for our local flower movement?
Oh my gosh, I think it's so empowering. I think that the United Nations is catching up to the Slow Flowers movement. We declared this about 10 years ago, but I mean, you're women and you're farmers. You're kind of the poster children for what I think is so interesting, that you can start a business on a very small budget. You can start a flower business on a small parcel of land, a 1/4 acre, or you can start a business on borrowed land. The barrier to entry is very low. And so, does that make sense, or is it very high? It's low. It's easy to get into this.
Yes.
And I think that's really encouraging, because women are entrepreneurs, women are creative, women make things happen, women get things done, and flower farming is just a wonderful vehicle to create a lifestyle that fits your business, or create a business that fits your lifestyle.
So it's not just flower farmers. I have friends who are dairy farmers that are women. I have friends who are, every sort of farmer that you can think of. I personally believe that female farmers are superheroes. It's a superpower. Evident in the building this week with everyone that I've been speaking to. Now, you guys both speak to farmers on a regular basis on your podcasts. Have you found that there have been obstacles for female farmers in this industry?
Go for it, Jennifer.
That's a great question. I think the flower industry is unique because we are predominantly female, at least in the local flowers movement. But it's interesting when you go beyond the US production, it's still more male driven, especially the garden industry. So I don't know the numbers of historical or statistical data, and I would love to actually know, but statistically, female farmers make less than male farmers, just like any other industry. We're less represented in the industry.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
It is. Deb, have you found it in your interviews that there are obstacles that female farmers face that male ones do not?
I think that, yes, I think the biggest obstacle is that in general, flower farming, and I know we're talking about all kinds of agriculture, but flower farming is not perceived as a legitimate facet of agriculture. So that sort of works against women who are growing cut flowers. I'm not sure I can talk about women in other agricultural areas, but the number is increasing because there's generational changes happening in farming, and so we're seeing maybe daughters taking over for their family farm or ranch, and being more innovative in how they connect with their customers. It's not a commodity. The growth is in the couture and in the boutique side of the industry.
Yeah. And earlier when you said that it's not taken as maybe a serious business, when I was first starting out and I was sharing with my friends what my plans were, I ordered 6,000 bulbs, I was planting 300 or 400 peonies, and they were like, oh, that's cute. They didn't understand what I was trying to do was not just a hobby, it was a business, and it took a couple of years for me to gain some momentum and some success, really, for my actual friends that I've been friends with for 20 years to be like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing now. It's not just a hobby. So it was hurtful because they didn't understand what flower farming was and that it was going to basically take over the world.
I think when we bought our new farmland, I have a similar example, but it was on the county level. They told me, they're like, we had to tear down a house that had been caught on fire and was not livable on the property. And they said, well, if you tear this down, you have to make X amount of dollars as a farmer to be able to regrow this, and you're just going to be growing flowers. You're never going to be able to rebuild a house on this land. And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you just can't make enough money selling flowers. And I'm like, well, how much do you have to make? And they said, we have 20 acres, and they said you have to sell $80,000 a year of product.
Did they base it off the acreage?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's off of the value of the land, high value farmland in our area. And I said, a flower farmer, you're just growing flowers, you're never going to make any money. And I just wanted to be like, well, watch me.
Exactly. And I think that's the attitude of a lot of flower farmers. We have that you can't tell me no attitude. And if someone does tell us no, we are more likely to say, watch me.
Exactly.
So do you think that the visibility now of flower farming with the documentaries and the YouTube channels that have erupted over the last year, I think when I started in 2018, I started posting videos about my flower farming journey. I was one of maybe 2 or 3 at the time, and now there are hundreds of YouTube channels. Do you think that the visibility is making it easier or harder to tap into the business?
I think the visibility is great. I would never complain about that because I think the more that flower farming, it can be pushed into the mainstream and shown as a lifestyle and shown as a success, as a way to sustain your family and your livelihood. I think that's really inspiring. My role models, really, when I started writing about this whole movement as a journalist in around 2010, my role models are the women farmers of the Seattle Growers Market. And I just brought this, they just gave me this tote bag. So this is their logo.
That's beautiful.
And they are up on the Sky Bridge. So if you want to go even buy flowers from local farmers, they have crops. But it is farmer owned, Northwest grown, but honestly, there's probably 85% of the owners of that cooperative are women.
Wow.
And they took control of their destiny by creating this cooperative, bringing farmers together to sell direct to florists. And they did that because the industry wasn't taking them seriously. The conventional wholesalers were kind of not valuing this amazing local product and paying them less, and they said no, we're not going to do that. So that was my inspiration, and just following along. There's so many people now who are creating cooperatives and collectives, and you know this, you have friends who are doing it.
I've been invited to a couple of them in the upstate New York area, and they're just trying to get our local flowers into the hands of the florists who don't realize the accessibility of the local flowers, and they're opting maybe for an easier phone call to a wholesaler rather than to tap in to see what we have locally.
Yeah, and I think you're proving through that collective model, which isn't for everybody, but those who are doing it, they're becoming an economic force in their community. The fact that you both have businesses that are based around flowers, you are economic forces that entitle you to be at the table in any conversation about agriculture.
Absolutely. Okay, I have to mention this because I don't want to dismiss, but we have some amazing male flower farmers.
We do.
And I want to shout out Sunflower Steve from Wisconsin, Daniel at Petal Pickers in South Carolina, Drew at Clara Joyce Flowers, and Antonio Valente in Canada are some amazing men that we have in the industry, and not to mention the hundreds of husbands who are farming alongside their wives, including mine. I don't think Brad would love for me to call him a flower farmer, but he is a flower farmer. So are you guys seeing more males entering the industry, in flower farming specifically?
Do you have a thought on that?
I'm trying to think. When I started flower farming in Hood River, I started a chat group on social media with our local farmers, and I think there was 5 of us in the group. One was a male, and the rest are female. And in our chat group, we now have about 30. And I think there's 2 males.
Okay.
So I think it's
more
still,
than one.
It's still predominantly female, but you're definitely seeing more male farms.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just wrote a book called The Flower Farmers. We only featured 29 farms in North America. I mean, there's thousands we could have interviewed and featured, and the only solo male farmer in that in the book is Julio Freitas of the Flower Hat, and he's wildly successful. He's from Bozeman, Montana, a floral designer who became a flower farmer. So you know Julio. But I do think we're seeing a lot of family dynamics, as I said, passing from one generation to the next, and also couples. And I've heard the statistic that traditionally in America, farming or farms in general have always had to rely on one outside income. So that there was dad was the mailman, or mom was the school teacher, and then the other person stayed home and ran the farm. It relies, it's dependent on a very complex economics, and more men may be getting into it, but they may be getting into farming through their spouses.
So for at least 10 years now, I've seen the statistic that 80% of the flowers that we sell here in this country are imported. Are we moving the needle at all?
Lord, I hope so. Sometimes when I started out, 15 years ago, I thought I was pushing the boulder uphill by myself, trying to say to people, and at this flower show, when I first spoke about this, I said, we have such an opportunity as gardeners to support local flower farming, because gardeners understand the seasonal cycles. I feel like gardeners are our best customers because they are already growing flowers. The needle changing is, It's hard to document.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of research in this area. I actually would really love to see the farming organizations spend as much money researching consumer attitudes about local flowers as they do post-harvest practices or, pests and diseases. I mean, you can tell I'm not a farmer because I'm like, oh, who cares about that? I want to know what consumers think.
Yeah.
Slow Flowers has financially supported the National Gardening Survey for 3 years in a row from 2022 to 2025. And we wrote specific language for that survey to ask people, how important is it to you that the flowers you buy are locally grown? And the follow-up question was, how important is it to you that they're American grown? Because American grown is kind of means mainly California.
It's more, local.
Yeah. So the local question, we went from like 57% of people saying it was all or somewhat, very or somewhat important, to by the third year, it went up to 63%. So it's a statistically correct survey. It's scientifically accurate with the metrics that they document, but it's 2,500 American households that are being surveyed. So anybody who's involved with research knows it's not a huge research group.
Yeah.
But the needle is moving in attitude, whether it's moving in sales. I think it's hard. If it moved 1%, I'd be thrilled.
I know, and think about how many billions of stems we're fighting against billions of stems that are coming in from outside the country.
I do think the one thing, if I can riff on this, is that when I first started documenting this with my first book, it's called The 50-Mile Bouquet. It came out in 2012. And
ahead of the trend, again.
Thank you. I love you. And then Slow Flowers came out in 2013. But at the time, the dominant flower sourcing, the flower production was in California. Yeah. 75% of cut flowers sold in the U.S. came out of California, and they were all big commercial farms. And hey, they flowered the country for a long time. Second, third generation families that had parents or grandparents had immigrated from Japan or Italy or Holland or Mexico, and they had they could afford land back in 100 years ago. They had greenhouses, and all of those farms, not all of them, but a good percentage of them have radically changed in this last 15 years. Land it's been more affordable to sell your land to developers than to grow Gerbera daisies. And it's been, there's been labor issues. There's been second, third generation children and grandchildren don't want to be farmers. They want to go work in Silicon Valley. So a lot of things have disrupted that California powerhouse. And a lot of people are wringing their hands about it. And I think it's fine, because what's filling the void are people like you, Nicole, and people like Jennifer, people stepping in and saying, we're going to decentralize domestic flower farming, and we're going to bring it to every community in the country. And so it's now in 50 states.
It seems like that's what's happening. So you were showing me some numbers earlier, approximately how many flower farmers that we do have in this country, and that number continues to rise every year. And we did have an explosion since 2017. That's when a lot of people started to see it. That's when social media started to ramp up. How has social media changed the face of flower farming?
Well, you kind of alluded to it with your own. It's going up. Well, it's a very visual industry, so thank God, right? We're showing somebody. We're showing beauty, and we're showing seasonality. Come back, and the accessibility of following these rock star flower farmers. Oh, actually, my co-author Robin Obney told me that rock star is a dated word. Influencers are really connecting with people, and the YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. It's I hope that's contributing to awareness of local flowers.
I like to call myself a storyteller. I like that word better. So I tell the story of my journey. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the same as yours, or yours, or yours, or yours, because I like to realize that everyone has a different way of doing things, and I'm showing what I'm doing, and if it works for you, amazing. If you can find something that works better, great for you, because it's just so specific to your zone, your microclimate, what you're planting, your soil, all of that stuff. Now, Jen, you had to up and move after losing your lease on what you were growing on, your beautiful dahlia field.
Yes.
What was that like, having to find a new property?
Well, you know, at first it was devastating. And especially when you share everything.
Yeah,
you
had a large following, and they were so used to seeing you in that dahlia field, and all of a sudden you didn't have access to that.
It was, I mean, honestly, it was soul crushing, because you just fall in love with flowers. Like, flowers become such a part of your life that you're like, what am I going to do? I have to have flowers. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And that was when we launched my podcast, is because I was like, I have to have a way to stay connected. We live in a very expensive agricultural area. Hood River County is the most expensive farmland in all of Oregon. And we've been trying for 5 years to buy farmland. Yeah. And we're like, we're not gonna find a farm. What are we gonna do? So we sold our house. We decided to sell our house. And when we sold our house, my husband was like, well, it could take a while. And I was like, well, I'm gonna start a podcast and I'm gonna talk to everyone so I don't lose touch, because flower people are the best people. And I mean,
that was your connection.
That was my connection, so I didn't lose it. And then my listeners were amazing, and they started reaching out, and they're like, read Gabe Brown, Dirt to Soil, watch Kiss the Ground. And that turned me on to regenerative agriculture, because people so willingly shared with me that I started saying, oh, and then talking to people on my podcast, people like you who have 20-acre farms. Here I was on leasing an acre of land, and I thought I was looking for an acre of land, but I think the visibility of seeing each other out there, it starts to make you go, well, if she can do it, why can't I?
Yeah, such a good point.
And then my mindset changed, and I said, oh my gosh, maybe I'm thinking too small. Why can't I have 20 acres? Well, I didn't think 20 acres, I thought 5 acres, but I went and changed our Zillow search that very next day. And all of a sudden there was this property that just came on the market. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is like my unicorn property that checks all the boxes.
Look bigger, think bigger, grow bigger.
And I had to lose my old space to find my new space.
Yeah, well, you are already filling it with so much beauty in just the first year.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that. So when did you realize that flower farming wasn't just pretty things and that it was a whole lot of hard work? Because I think that's what you don't see. And you know what, maybe the story's changing a little bit on Instagram, because people like myself and like Galina with the micro flower farm, she's showing the, you got to pick up the bales of pro mix, you got to dig in the ground. So it is grunt work, and it's not just picking bouquets and showing them. And that's the good part, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of work that leads up to that. And how far into it were you when you realized, okay, this is not just picking pretty flowers?
Well, my answer might surprise you.
Okay.
I always joke that we don't need CrossFit. we have farmer fit.
Yes.
Like, who needs CrossFit when you're farming?
It's true.
I don't know that I've ever looked at it and gone, this is really hard. I think that when you love what you do, it's something you want to do. And I go to bed so tired at night. It takes me 5 seconds to fall asleep
100%.
because I'm so exhausted. But I don't look at it as hard work, because I'm like, and Claudia from In the Garden with Claudia said it so perfectly on my podcast. She said, how lucky are we to do the thing that we've always dreamed about? Yeah, it's true. So yes, it is hard work, and every single day is hard work. Every day is a new challenge, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it, how lucky am I? Yeah.
You have a positive mindset.
I do.
Even when you're down. Even when you're down and you've had all these like the stuff you've told me about the critters that are, eating through their drip lines. It's heart crushing to hear about this.
But I'm alive and I get to see flowers.
Right, that's so true. I wish I had a slide for this, because I have a mantra, and I wrote this on my personal Facebook the other day, but I wrote, collaboration over competition, community over ego, protect your values, not your turf. Kindness is a business model, and that will come back to help you. Cheer loudly for others. Secure people stay unbothered. And not every battle deserves my sword. We are in an industry where we are seeing an influx of new flower farmers, and we have to learn how to turn that competition into collaboration.
Yes.
And I know that here in the Pacific Northwest, you are doing that. Talk about how the relationships that you're making here are really pushing your business forward and not setting it back.
Well, I think so much of my mindset of community over competition goes back to Debra and
Yes.
the Slow Flowers
Yes.
movement. I mean, you can look at it and go, in my town, my community in the Columbia Gorge, there's 30-something growers, and you can go, oh my gosh, we can't support that. Or you can go, local flowers make up 20% of the market. Until we move that needle and see less imported flowers, my competition isn't my neighbor that's
Right.
growing flowers. My competition is those
There's
imported
so much
flowers.
room. There's just so much room. Until we move that needle, we don't have to worry about who's growing next door.
And there's so many ways to sell them. I mean, there's one flower farmer in our town, and she pulls the dyes out of the flowers and she makes dyed
That's
fabrics
beautiful.
out of them.
Yes.
And someone else makes everything out of dried flowers. And one person grows for on-farm wedding view pick experiences. So just because we're all flower farmers, it's this overarch. It's like if you look at a family tree and how everything branches out, there's so many ways to make a living at being a flower farmer that there's not just a one-size-fits-all.
Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, Deb has to leave us in just a few minutes.
I'm so glad you're looking at the clock. 'Cause I don't
I'm
know.
on it. I'm on it. So before you leave, though, something that you spoke about this week at the conference is that how backyard gardeners are wanting to add cut flowers to their gardening space because you don't need to sell flowers to enjoy flowers and growing them in your backyard. You can just throw some plants in, cut some flowers, and enjoy them on your table. So talk about that trend and how it's kind of taken off.
It really is. And actually, I think social media is part of
Okay.
it. Because, and I come from gardening. I've been a longtime garden editor and garden writer. And what really got me into learning from farmers was when I worked for Country Gardens magazine, Better Homes and Gardens. I could sell them on a flower farm profile every single issue, because not that they wanted to teach readers how to be flower farmers, but readers wanted the romance, the techniques, and the varieties that flower farmers are growing. And it's sort of aspirational. And I think fast forward to today, we want to know what seeds you're growing, what dahlias you have, what unique varieties you're introducing that maybe they're not seeing in the garden centers. And if you own a garden center, that I really want to talk to you about that.
I have 2 tables of just cut flower seedlings because of the demand. Because people come to my greenhouse and they're like, "You're the cut flower lady. Where are the starts?"
This is, and I worked in the nursery industry, and I've been frustrated by that because you know the nursery industry wants to sell everything in bloom.
The bedding stuff that's short.
And it has to be pretty and blown out. And that's not ideal conditions for buying cut flowers.
And sometimes some of the customers aren't accustomed to that. So when I'm selling Lysianthus plugs that are maybe only 3 or 4 inches high, people are like, "Where are the flowers?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Oh, well, these are for you to grow and enjoy them in a couple of months." So it's teaching.
It's better to plant them
again
now.
and again and
Yeah.
again. Yes. And you have to run.
No, I was just going to say that what we're doing here in Seattle is Slow Flowers has partnered with the Growers Market, and we have, last year we did this and we're going to do it again this year on May 3rd, have the ultimate cutting garden plant sale.
Yes.
And gardeners are our shoppers. It's just a one-day sale. They come to buy direct from the farmers. And it was like a feeding frenzy last year. We barely even promoted it. So we're very excited that we have a little more time to plan it this year. But back to your point about gardeners, we need to acknowledge that they're an important customer base because they don't want to be farmers, so they're also going to want to buy your flowers.
Yeah.
They're going to value the labor and talent and expertise that you bring to being a flower farmer when they need to have a wedding or have a big production where they simply can't just snip from the hydrangea shrub and make a centerpiece. So it's building that appreciation.
One of my best customers, Teresa, she's a flower friend. She has been a CSA member of mine for probably 6 years and turned into a friend. So she is so excited to grow her starts in her own garden. She'll come and get my bouquet and then add from her garden and make something bigger and better.
That's
and
lovely.
that's like a perfect marriage between customer and farmer and garden center or whatever. You know
We
what I
want-
mean?
we
It's
want
just
more of
awesome.
that. I love
Yes,
that.
yes, beautiful. Oh, before you go, color trends, 2026. Are the antiques sneaking away, or are we adding on to the antiques? Because I heard that bright and bold is making a comeback. Is this true?
I think there's two trends. One is sort of the wedding industry, and that's
Yeah.
its own little, universe. It was all, cafe au lait and blush.
Yeah.
It is definitely expanding because I think there's more influence on social media to say you can have a rainbow bouquet, it's okay. So there's that kind of niche, and then I think in floral design and the inspiration that's coming from people who are influencers like Max Gill, a fabulous designer in California. I see this experimentation in color and in color combinations that are so alluring. And if something is going to look good in the garden, it's going to be beautiful in a bouquet as well.
Listen, Roseanne Brown Lysianthus has been my favorite flower for a few years now, and that looks good with a purple, with a red, with an orange. Like, you can't go wrong with this antique color. So anyone who says that it looks dead needs to look again because it is gorgeous.
I agree.
Yes. So I wanted to say goodbye to you now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for including
Go get
me.
down there. You've got another event to host, right?
I do, and my instructor Dee Hall is here. She better go
you're gonna go
with me.
Yes. I'm gonna come down and check it out.
Thank you so much. I could talk to you guys all day.
I know.
I really appreciated this, and I'll slip away.
Yes.
And I'll see you later. Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. Okay, a couple other trends that I'll just briefly mention, and then we'll do some Q&As. Sweet peas. Marin Mathis just came out with Sweet Pea School Book. She's an amazing sweet pea flower grower. She's selling seeds. She's putting sweet peas back on the map. And then, will Dahlia wars ever calm down? What do you think?
Oh boy.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it will. Dahlias are having their time in the spotlight as they deserve.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're gonna go away anytime soon, because as the local flower movement grows, if people can learn that 12 roses, a dozen roses are beautiful, why can't a dozen dahlias
Gorgeous.
be just as beautiful in a wedding bouquet? And so I only think that as our local movement grows, there's going to be even a greater demand for dahlias. I mean, you look at some of the Facebook groups, there's 330,000 people in these groups that want dahlias. There's room to grow. Again, it goes back to the wholesale.
And it's so great that all these small farms are now selling their tubers, because if you look at all these large sales that happen, a lot of these varieties are sold out within 30 minutes. So there is room for other farmers to grow and sell tubers. In fact, Jen's going to be hosting the Profitable Dahlia Summit coming up in like a week. I'm taking part in that because we're growing a couple thousand dahlias this year at the farm, and we'll be doing some tuber sales as well. I got to get Brad Pitt on board for that. But he's on board. He's, what he wants to do, and this is funny, because of the pain that it is to mow in between all the rows, he wants to make one 1,000-foot row of dahlias.
No.
Just to mow down and up so that he doesn't have to mow in between. I know, I see his thought process, and that's smart, but I said, I don't want to walk that to harvest. I'd rather, it tricks your mind to have to go the whole way other than go in between the rows. So dahlias are just, the dahlia craze is not going to end. Sweet peas are doing great. And then we've got some interesting colors. And then one of my favorite things that's happening right now is the breeding of different colors of some tried and true great flowers, like the zinnias, the celosia. We've got some agrostemma colors. There is a pink forget-me-not now coming out. It's a Chinese forget-me-not.
Yes, that's right.
The pink variety, I'm so excited about that. I ordered that seed packet. But just the farmers that are experimenting with the breeding and cross-pollinating and creating something exciting. Shout out Sunflower Steve. Those kind of things are what keeps the industry exciting, and you're always looking for what's coming next. Like, what's the cusp of what's coming next? You're doing some dahlia breeding as well, aren't you?
We are, yes.
Which is basically you start it from seed, you know what I mean, and you come up with a surprise. How many are you doing?
Oh gosh, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
We're into year 5 of growing from our own seeds.
Yep.
And I mean, when you count our first years, we had 1,200 first year seedlings last year. But you evaluate those and they get narrowed down, and I think we maybe kept 60 of those 1,200. So you have to get really ruthless, because you don't want to, every flower is beautiful, but when you're growing them and hybridizing them, you need to think, Does this have a good stem attachment? You don't want it to pop off the second you put it in a bouquet. Does it have a sturdy stem that's gonna not break in your hand or flop over? What is the positioning of the flower? They consider different forms. So there's tabletop where it faces straight up. There's a 45-degree angle. There is clock face. I don't normally keep my clock face ones because they're really hard to work into bouquet arrangements. And then there's face down.
Yeah.
And so if it's face down, they can still make a pretty garden flower, but I'm growing specifically for the cut flower grower. So I have very strict standards in mind that I'm like, okay, it has to check these boxes so that it can look good in a bouquet and withhold that bouquet.
I might actually, Brad might need to do a 2,000-foot row. Because I did buy quite a few seed packets to try to come up with my own varieties as well. And you know what I'm most excited about for that is naming them, because there are some pretty boring dahlia names, and the list that I have is ridiculous. I'm so excited to have some playful names in the dahlia market. So if you've got some to name, keep it interesting. It's got to be good.
My first one I named that I shared this year, it won't probably come out till 2027 or 28, is the Flowering Farmhouse Pumpkin Spice.
Pumpkin spice, it's delicious. Okay, so one more question for you, Jen, and then we are going to open it up to some questions, if you have any. Okay, finish this sentence. This season, success looks like.
This season's success looks like nourishing the field, my family, and myself.
That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you. We got time, Rice. Thank you so much for joining me today. I attended her session earlier, and one thing I wanted to mention, if your dahlias have thin, floppy heads, you mentioned that you put calcium in when you foliar fertilize.
Spray, yes.
Yeah, so look into adding some calcium if you want some sturdy dahlia stems. So, yeah, so let me wrap up this pod, and then we will get some Q&A. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of In the Garden with Flower Hill Farm, and we'll see you next time in the garden. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm your host, Nicole Pitt, and you can find more of my garden adventures over on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Flower Hill Farm. And of course, all of the seeds and garden goodies we talked about are waiting for you at botanicalinterests.com. Or check your favorite local garden center to see if they carry botanical interests, like we do at the Boone Street Nursery. Save 5% by using the code INTHEGARDEN. Want to see what we're talking about? Subscribe to the Botanical Interests YouTube channel for the video version. We'll see you next time in the garden. I'll meet you there.